Hi everyone, my name is Mr. Anderson and I am mean to people on the internet. I try to be polite about it though. I just tend to ask hard questions and insist on the answers. On my channel you'll find a lot of stuff to do with debate. That's probably because I'm a lawyer. A lot of what I do is adapting a bunch of the stuff that I do as a lawyer, or that we do as lawyers, so that you guys can use some of those things in your own debates. And they come in especially handy when you're debating people who aren't particularly honest interlocutors. By which I mean, they try and dodge your questions and refuse to admit the truth. And so, a bunch of the stuff, bunch of the techniques from the legal world come in really handy in those situations. So that's kind of what this channel is all about. So you're going to find a lot of stuff to do where I do a bunch of debate technique breakdowns. But one of the things that I also do, which is obviously important to get you to listen to me, is kind of put things in practice and show you that these things work within the context of regular conversations. Now, what we're going to do today is we're gonna try and have a little bit of fun. We're going to try and do something which is impossible, which I know is impossible. And that is that we're going to try and prove the fundamental assumptions of science. And we're going to try and prove those things to a presuppositionalist, which is a Christian philosophy sort of aficionado who specializes in refusing to admit that the fundamental assumptions of science are justifiable. So we're going to try and prove those things and justify those things to somebody whose whole shtick is denying them. I don't know how well this is going to go. And this is my first interaction with this guy, so we'll see. Now, this is a fellow named JimBob. And like I said, his whole shtick is saying that that scientists and people who believe in like physical reality can't really know anything because they can't justify their basic assumptions. They can't justify things like logic or reason or knowledge or information. They have no basis for justifying even things that are as basic as that there's anything out there beyond their own existence, or that the past will resemble the future and the future will resemble both. So like the idea is that you can't even know for sure that the sun is going to come up tomorrow, because in order for you to like reason your way to that, you're going to be relying on the idea that the sun has always come up in the morning in the past, and you can't use that like reasoning and apply it to the future without assuming that it matters, that it applies to the future. So there's no way, there's nothing that you can look at in the world at all that will justify this presumption that the future will resemble the past and that the present will resemble both of them. And philosophers have been wrestling with this for years. Like, this is an idea that was invented by a guy named David Hume in something before the 19th century, 18th, 17th, 16th, somewhere in there. It's been around for like a long time, and nobody has ever been able to prove this idea, to be able to prove that that's true without just assuming it's true first. So like technically, and I'm going to try and prove it to a guy whose whole shtick is denying it. So, I mean, don't have high hopes, but do have high hopes, because I think I'm going to do it. We're going to see what's going to happen. Anyway, that's what's going on, you guys.
Let's have Mr. Anderson on. Mr. Anderson, no, this is not a dig at you. It's just a clip that I play before having people on. See, I got a laugh, so that's good.
Well, no, you know what, it's always fun coming into the lion's den and trying to pet the lion. And
sure.
Who's a good lion, right?
Yeah.
No, I appreciate you having me on, and I think it's important to have these kinds of dialogues. And I should say, like, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I think I can justify like the atheist presumptions. I don't honestly think I can, but I think that it'll be fun to try.
What is one assumption you would start with, you think, if you were to like pick like one.
Yeah, like, I mean, let's pick like the uniformity of nature. Like the future will resemble the past, and the present will resemble the both of them. Like that one's pretty. I think that one's fundamental. You can't know pretty much anything without making that assumption. Canonically, like there's no way to justify it, right? Like there's no way for anybody to justify it without assuming that it's true first. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, that brings up a question. Is there anything that's just fundamentally a precondition for everything we call knowledge? This is why atheists who don't like tag actually do engage in tag by admitting that there are preconditions for knowledge. Now, what we're asking when we ask a larger question is what justifies those preconditions? So if you and I both agree the regularity in nature paired with logic and mind, not just the regularity in nature, but the fact that we can evaluate.
We're just doing the regularity of nature first, right? Yeah.
Let's stick with regularity of nature. You're saying from any worldview, it's you can't avoid the assumption of the regularity in nature. But then you're also saying,
I think that's true. But
okay, and then you're saying,
I think it's fun to try and justify it anyway. So
okay,
here's some of the parameters then. If I'm going to try and do this thing, which I think both of us agree is actually impossible. So can I at least assume that there is such a thing as an objective truth? Like, do you think that truth is objective?
Yeah, I think to assume anything otherwise is a performative contradiction.
Right, but beyond whether or not it's contradictory, you think it's true, that objective truth exists.
Right.
Okay. And then also, like, I'm allowed to use logic, right? Because if you want me to logically prove the thing, like, I can't do it without using logic.
No, you could use logic. There's a misconception, and whether theists or Christians who use like a transcendental argument for God and ask for a justification for logic, there's a conflation that you can't use logic. What we're saying is that, well, how do you justify logic? But that's not what's in question today, right now, at least. So yeah.
Okay, and so like, would you agree with me that, like, this is, I'm pretty sure you'll agree that if A is true, then A is true, like the syllogism, law of identity, right? That's like a valid, I guess, form of argument, right?
Yeah, if A is true, but A assumes, when we say true, is it A equal a proposition, a description of something? Or is it just that you're saying A equals A and that's true, but not A is true is a difference.
If A is true, then A is true.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And is there uniformity of nature?
Yes. There's uniformity, regularity of nature. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I kind of cheated, but I think I did it.
What?
Proved my presumption that the uniformity of nature was true.
Oh man, let's just take a second and appreciate the look on his face right now.
Right. No, but I'm saying there's other things assumed to even make the statement.
I didn't assume that, though. I didn't assume it, right?
No. I said there's other things assumed. That, like I said.
Yeah, I know, but I
right. No, but you didn't.
Cheated.
But listen. But the regularity of nature doesn't then account for the fact that you can examine nature and determine it's regular.
So now he's trying to move the goalposts, and here's how I dealt with that.
That may be, but that wasn't one of the things, because we only have like 15 minutes, right? So
right. But I'm saying, but just saying, well, I've just proven by necessity the regularity of nature is regular because A equals A. Well, no.
And now observe the patter of man who does not like to be wrong.
The fact is, the regularity of nature the world could have been irregular in a sense, indiscernible or unintelligible.
The fact that that's not under our propositions, because you've said that the regularity of nature is true.
Well, no, how we observe it, it's to be true, right? But the thing is, hold on a second. Hold on. Mm-hmm. The reality that we see, right, the physical reality, the external world, could have been in a way where items were popping in out of existence at a like basically a pattern which was indiscernible from us, right? That the world could have been unintelligible is a logical possibility.
It was. It's not anymore.
No, it could be. The fact that it could be unintelligible, then you couldn't just assume, well, we've just proven the law of identity and the regularity of nature, the uniformity of nature, right, which is observation and mind dependent.
Can't be observation and mind dependent because there is objective truth. We went over this, and now you want to change it. Quelle surprise.
You're assuming just because we observe it such a way, then it's necessarily that way, and it has to be that way. Right?
No, I'm not.
Well, then it could be another way.
No, it couldn't. But it's
How could it not be another way?
Because you've told me that that nature is uniform, right?
So you didn't ask him whether or not subjectively, he believed that uniformity of nature was true. He said the uniformity of nature was true. And here's this is the sting in the tail with these guys, is they love to have one rule for them and one rule for us. And you can't know the uniformity of nature is true, for whatever reason. Yes, I can, because you just told me, baby.
Yeah, that's an observation.
And if nature is uniform, then nature is uniform because truth's subjective.
No, that's post-diction.
Logically conclude. No, it's not a contradiction.
It doesn't. Yeah. No, it's post-diction. I said it means that doesn't grant you the justified assumption that it will maintain its regularity. You're just saying it is.
Man, this guy and his goalposts, they're on rockets.
It will be.
No, because you said that nature is uniform, which means that it will maintain its regularity. Implicit.
No.
Isn't that the whole thing we were arguing?
No.
That's
it will.
You don't believe that nature is uniform.
No, I do believe it is. No, listen. Okay. Is versus will be are two different things. Correct?
Okay. Do you believe it will be?
Yes.
Then what are we talking about, right? But no, here I decide to sort of trade one advantage for another. So instead of just kind of, really having some fun with him about well, then there you go. I've decided to try and go for a bit of a larger goal, which is I'm going to try and establish that actually pretty much all of the assumptions that you usually use, neither one of us can justify, and that they are base assumptions, and that's the basis upon which we're going to have our conversation. So you'll see how I do that.
Okay. And is that something you just think, or is that something that you know is a fact?
No, it's something that I put faith in.
Right. No, that's not my question. I'm asking.
I just told you. I just clarified. It's neither. It's it's a false dilemma you're posing. Right. It's faith-based. So you and I both have faith that the regularity of nature will maintain, which is a different statement than whether it is currently regular and we observe it in such a way.
Right.
So the assumption that it will is faith-based from both the atheist and the Christian.
Right. But the faith, when you say faith, I mean, if we take your belief in God out of that, do you have any basis for believing that the universe or that nature is going to be uniform going forward? No. Other than that you believe it to be the case? And if we we don't presume that God is real, then your faith would be equivalent to a belief. Is that fair? If he is real, it's different. But if he's not, then it's the same. Is that fair?
No, I'd say it's still all faith-based. That you don't escape faith. There's no knowing, right? Yeah. Is not knowledge is theory laden.
No, but my question was in terms of the words faith as opposed to belief. I like my understanding, and again, this is just my understanding, and I'm just some idiot on the internet, right? But my understanding is that the real difference between faith and belief is that faith it's something more than belief, and the reason for that is because God is something more than kind of everything else. And so when you believe in God, that's faith, right? Assuming God exists.
Well, how do you define faith then?
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying, is that I don't want to foist my definition of faith onto you. And I'm suggesting a definition, but like, you can tell me I'm wrong. This is your
Well, what is
show,
it?
right? Not
Yeah.
mine.
Well, I'm asking you, what is your definition of faith?
Well, I'm saying that faith is a belief in a divine power, like in a deity.
No. Faith definitionally
Okay, that's not what
is belief in something without evidence.
So
From
faith
your
is
view.
belief in-
You guys catch that one at the end? He defines faith as a belief without evidence, and then as I start talking, he says, "From your view," and it's like, what? Like, you're the one who just defined it, and now you're telling me what my definition is? Like, that's not my definition. That's your definition. You were the one talking, not me. You know, I defined faith differently. I literally just did. And so you can see how I don't let him get away with that. Here's how it goes.
anything without evidence.
Yeah, I mean, what would be the distinction between a belief, faith, and belief from your view? I'm asking, what's the distinction?
Well, I told you my distinction is the object of the belief. But going back to what you're saying is that a belief can be something that it is when you think something is true. Is that fair definition of what a belief is?
Yeah, and it would rely on faith.
Okay. And well, sometimes it will and sometimes it won't, because
No,
you
always.
believe that I'm real, right? But you don't have
No.
faith that I'm real.
Yeah, no, I'm saying all the beliefs would rely on faith in something else. In this case, your reasoning, right? You'd put faith in your reasoning, your rationale. You'd put faith in your accuracy to determine and investigate sense data, right?
Right.
Might put faith in other people's account of sense data to some extent. And so you're always placing faith. Now, the atheist likes to say it's confidence, not faith. Well, I'm saying, to state confidence, then you're putting your faith in.
I think confidence is different.
You got to let me finish. You got to let me, hold on. Yeah, I know. You got to let me finish. To say you're confident in something, means you're putting your faith in the apparatus or the mechanism that produces the confidence. So there's no escaping faith in regards to forming a belief. There's something that's fundamental before you form a belief that is faith-based.
Okay. So when we say that faith is belief without proof, so then like what I'm understanding is that you believe something, but you can have a belief without proof. If that belief is without proof, then it counts as faith. If that belief is not without proof, then I'm presuming it would not be faith, that it would be something else. Is that right? Do I have that right?
I'm saying that whatever you call the something else, you couldn't point to the something else, the alternative, without appealing back to faith every time.
So in this moment, I had to make a choice, right? And I could have got aggressive, or I could be more conciliatory and try and build consensus. Now, the aggressive approach would have been to point out that there is an element of sort of circularity here and inconsistency, because he's saying on the one hand that faith is belief without proof, but the belief has faith in it, and all beliefs have faith in them. And so if faith is a belief without proof, but belief has faith in it, then faith is faith mixed with something, and the whole concept sort of falls apart, and it's just a mishmash. And I realized that at the time, and I could have gone down that road, but it would not have furthered our larger goal. So sometimes when you're doing this sort of thing, you kind of have to keep your eyes on the prize, and even where you see like a little, thing where you can, give them a little jab, it's not necessarily worth it. Sometimes you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
I understand that. because of what I would call your fundamental presumptions or your presuppositions or whatever, and what you would call faith, right? Right. So I mean, I think it's probably like, look, if we're going to be, like I said, I mean, I am trying to take on what I think is probably an impossible task, but but like I said, I think this is just a fun exercise. So if I'm ticking you off, like,
no. Let's see. I want to see how you respond to this question here, or this statement here. Question nothing says faith is the excuse people give when they don't have any evidence. Now, now when I ask you, let answer that, and I'll ask a follow-up question to you and see where that goes.
I mean, I don't think that that's particularly fair. Like I said, like I'm not a theist. I'm not really an atheist either. But I have respect for both positions, and I think that saying that's kind of mean.
Well, is it mean? Well, let's forget the mean part. Does it assume intent? It's just fallacious, right? It just assumes intent of the person, right? That they're trying to make excuses, right?
It's an excuse, right? I mean, I don't think that. I think that. You correct me if I'm wrong, because you're one of the people that actually believes in God. But I don't think that people who believe in God are just kind of trying to make an excuse, right? I think that they honestly have that belief. And I think that a lot of times they do have at least some evidence in their own minds. I think even when you do have faith in God, there is all I think there's, it requires that leap. But I don't know. I've listened, the reason I came on here was I've watched some of your content, and I think that you're, a non-moron, right?
Thanks.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's probably as nice as I'll ever be to anybody, right? But
now I should point out here at this point that I learned more about JimBob later, and he and I kind of got into a disagreement about that, and I'm not going to air any of that at this point in time, because it doesn't have anything to do with the debate, and it isn't fair for me to come onto his channel and then start judging him about some of the views that he has, which I don't agree with, which are not germane to this conversation. So let's just say that he and I disagree on other issues. None of those disagreements are of any relevance here.
It seems to me like you actually give a crap about being rational and being honest and fair and engaging with arguments. And it seems to me like you want there to be some reason for your belief in God, and you search for and you challenge and you test those reasons, and you're testing them against the alternative. So to say that faith is just an excuse seems to me to be kind of dismissive of other people's beliefs.
Right. Yeah, I think it's silly. I mean, it's just a low form. It's not even an argument. This statement, and I'm going to set this as the precedent to start my review. But I appreciate you coming on. You can respond to this one more thing, and then I'll move on. No, absolutely. He says knowledge requires evidence. Now, what do you think I would say to that? Why don't you go into my shoes, the best you can, steel man, what you think my response to this statement would be?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what your response would be. Give me a start of it, and I'll try and extrapolate the rest.
Okay, so if a knowledge is a justified true belief in the accepted sense, the definition that most philosophy uses today, right? Let's say we accept that.
And so now we have a definition of knowledge as well, in the event that we engage further. And I'll let you know on something. I'm now actually recording some of this commentary in the future, and I know for a fact that we do have further interactions, and the definition of knowledge does matter, and he does try and redefine it in other ways later. But you can see here that when we establish sort of the basics and the ground rules here, he gave a definition of knowledge, and this is it.
Knowledge is a justified belief, right? Is there any? My question to this guy who says question nothing is there anything assumed without evidence to even come to knowledge? And again, I think we both already established it. Whether we can, So would you say, and we'll finish with this because we both agree on this, wouldn't you say, well, no, knowledge actually requires the regularity in nature maintains?
Yeah, you can't make any and I mean, and I'm a big proponent of science, and like I said, I'm not a theist, but no, you can't get around it. Not only do you have to presume that the future will resemble the past and the present will resemble both of them, you have to also presume that your senses are reliable, that you're not inside the matrix, right? I'm Mr. Anderson inside the matrix.
Therefore, I'm glad you said that. Therefore, to people like question nothing, when you say evidence, what you're doing is you're putting faith in your sense data analysis of what you're calling evidence. Now we know this because there's no external world that you're pointing to without it going through the filter of your sense data. So something's being assumed that isn't just evidence, because evidence assumes that you're properly interpreting sense data, right?
Yeah. No, so I mean, if we use your definition of faith, then everybody has to have some degree of faith, right?
Mhm.
You just have like slightly more than say I do, for example, right? Because we
Right.
both have to have faith in order to believe in the regularity of nature. We both have to have faith in order to believe that our senses don't lie to us. We both have to
Mhm.
have faith, to believe in, like, I mean, the laws of logic actually is a little bit of a slippery one, I think, but to some degree, I think that there's something there as well,
Sure.
and that you also have to have faith in a deity, right? And so, like, we both have to have faith. You just have like slightly more, I think.
Right. Well, I would say more. I would say I attribute faith to something. Um, I take it a step further, and now and we'll part ways here. Is that the atheist? Not that you're taking that position. Is that you didn't need to take the step further and say, I don't know, logic being conceptual and absolute, or truth being conceptual and absolute. You didn't need to attribute that mind dependent absolute concept to an absolute mind. But they agree it's mind dependent, and then I push the atheist further, or specifically the materialist atheist, and I ask them, are the laws of thought?
I'll adopt that position if you like some other time. Not that I
Yeah,
necessarily.
sure. Yeah. We'll we can reconvene, okay? But thanks for jumping on, Mr. Anderson. Appreciate you. And if the topic suits you or it's a panel, feel free to click the link.
So I want to emphasize the significance of what just happened there, because, and I don't think that JimBob at that time had realized the significance of what had just happened, because giving away those presumptions, those presuppositions, is the ball game when it comes to presuppositional apologetics. It is that stuff is their go-to. Without it, they're just regular apologists. Like getting him to agree that science is based on these assumptions which can't be proven, and that those unproven assumptions are common across both the atheistic or scientific worldview and the theistic and even presuppositionalist worldview, the importance of that can't be understated, or can't be overstated, I should say. It takes away their main tool that they use both to attack science and atheism, and that they use to defend themselves, and that they use to deflect when they're in uncomfortable situations. So it really does strip them of like most of their toolkit when you get that sort of admission. So as I say, I don't think that he realized what had happened initially, but he certainly did later, and he was very, very, very angry about it, as you can see here.
You dirty little pig snake, you fork-tongued lawyer, you little fork-tongued professional liar, you muck-raking pig snake. No, you weren't harsh. Stop patting yourself on the back. You played dirty. You misled, you pig snake.
So how did I do that? How did I prove what everyone knows is impossible in the first place? What I did was I picked on an inconsistency in his position. And instead of just pointing it out and pointing out the contradiction, I used it against him. Now the contradiction is this. He says that there is an objective reality on the one hand, and that there's an objective truth. But at the same time, he says that our access to truth is dictated and limited by our worldviews. That essentially truth is subjective. So he's trying to set up a situation where he has access to truth and I don't. So what he's saying is, because he believes in God and I don't, or at least I'm on the fence, he can know that nature is uniform, but I can't, because he assumes his worldview is superior. So one of the presuppositionalists' favorite tricks is to say that non-theists are not allowed to reason, are not allowed to attack the Christian worldview, because they do not hold their own worldviews in this to the same standards and evidence. So they're trying to get atheists and agnostics to prove their fundamental assumptions. And doing that is seen as a way to put them back on the defensive and stop the attacks on Christianity for its inconsistencies. Remember, these fundamental assumptions are common to all worldviews, and the theists say that that they can and do know that they are true, just that the atheists don't know that they're true. So the inconsistency is that the theists are then basically asking the atheists to prove something that the theists already know is true, which is, of course, generally a waste of time in an honest conversation. So what I did was a frame shift. Instead of trying to prove this thing in my mind, which is impossible, I proved it in his mind. Now I'm not trying to prove I know it. I'm just trying to prove that it is true. And since he already knows that it's true, and his mind is the one evaluating that truth statement, I can prove it's true by simply forcing him to reference his own existing knowledge. Because if it's true, then it's true, and it doesn't matter whether I know it or not. And it doesn't matter if I can be sure about it or not. He knows it. He's sure of it. And if he's sure that what I'm saying is true, then why is he arguing with me about it? In this way, you can see why lawyers are so often obsessed with admissions, and why cross-examination can be such a powerful tool. Because with admissions, you can essentially prove things that are otherwise unprovable, and you can know things which are otherwise unknowable. And you can force people to abandon positions that they don't really believe are true. And in the context of a philosophical discussion like this one, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to get a concession like I did, and he's going to retreat to a more reasonable position where, look, there's uncertainty on both sides, and, we all have assumptions, and, there's just one additional assumption in theism, and that is the assumption of God's existence. Or the person will retreat to solipsism and say things like, well, how do you know that what I told you is true? Or, well, how do you even know that your senses aren't lying to you, right? In which case, basically, look, man, I don't really care what you have to say if that's the position that you're going to take, because if you want me to assume that you're lying to me, then I don't care about your opinions because they're just lies, Or by the same token, if you want me to assume that you are a figment of my imagination, then I don't really care what you have to say, because, you don't exist, right? And I only care about the opinions of those entities which I assume exist. So, look, it's up to you. If you want me to assume that you exist and take your argument seriously, I'm willing to do that. But if you want me to assume that you don't exist and not take your argument seriously, then I'm willing to do that too. So, whichever it is up to you. And that's the new horn of the new dilemma that I put him on. And he made his choice, as you saw, and that's how we were able to gain even further progress and get the larger concession that all of these assumptions, not just the uniformity of nature, but also the existence of external reality and the reliability of the senses and all those things, all of those assumptions are true. And or at least that they're all common assumptions that we have to make. And as I said, that's the whole ball game when it comes to presuppositionalism, and that's why he was so mad.